My name is Rachel Chisholm, and in the studio with me now is Northern Territory Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Education and Workforce Training. I am, of course, talking to the Honourable Selena Uibo. Hello, Selena, and thank you for coming in.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks so much for having me.
It's good to have you in the studio. You've had an amazing 2019, and quite recently you've just had a whirlwind trip around the Northern Territory. Would you like to tell us what you got up to last weekend?
Last week I was in Central Australia and I spent 2 days in Alice Springs, and we signed the Alice Springs Mombatua Education Declaration, which is the new set of 10 years national education goals for the whole of Australia, and that was at our Education Council, which is the Commonwealth Minister for Education, as well as all the states and territories, and it was a fantastic ceremony signing at Larapinta Primary School. But in terms of having Mombatua, the Aranda name for Alice Springs, in the title of the document, I think really puts front and centre Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander education and obviously the recognition of First Nations people for that national document.
So it's a document that is aimed at closing the gap in education for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
It has parts of that element, Rachel, but it's very general. It's a refresh of, many people would have heard of the Melbourne Education Declaration. So every 10 years there's a reset, and making sure that Australia's goals for education are contemporary, that they're relevant, that they're contextual to Australia for all the states and territories. So that was our refresh for the next 10 years. So there is front and centre now Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students and making sure that there's equity and access to education. But there's also now the recognition of history, experience and knowledge and language of our First Nations people in that document.
This is a 10-year plan for education around Australia. So are we talking, you're looking at the syllabus, the education program, what the kids are going to be learning in 10 years?
A lot of it is about the practicality and the aspirations of where do we want Australia to go towards education in the next 10 years, what's achievable, what's already happening, how can we improve education for all young people, all Australian children. And mostly it's the commitment from all states and territories, every jurisdiction across Australia, including the Commonwealth federal government, to say these are our goals, this is how we want our children and young people to achieve learning outcomes, stability, access, equity in education, as well as being ready for workforce and training in their later years.
So that was Friday in Alice, and you were also in Newland as well. What happened in Newland?
My primary purpose of visiting Newland was to attend a special ceremony that's held now each year, and it's called the Adrian Wagg Memorial Achievement Ceremony, and it's run through with the support of Department of Trade, Business and Innovation and through that workforce training portfolio that I hold, and it recognises Yolngu people who are standout employees in the East Arnhem region. Businesses around the Yolngu region, so in East Arnhem, that northeast Arnhem pocket of the territory, nominate employees who are Yolngu and Aboriginal from that region. There's a selection process and then an award winner and an encouragement award winner. It's named after a man, Mr. Adrian Wagg, who was a Bullanda, non-Indigenous man who worked very closely in partnership to support Yolngu people, and particularly in the Homelands movement, supporting that many, many years ago. He unfortunately passed away in 2002 in a helicopter accident. He was a pilot. And so this has been a way that Yolngu and Bullanda people have used to, cement his memory and to give purpose to the very strong work he did in that region.
So the award is, people are nominated for it. The recipients must feel so honoured, knowing that the community is getting behind them and their goals. Was it great? Were they excited when they received it?
It was really lovely. It was, just after lunch on a Friday afternoon, but there was a really good turnout in the town hall, and it was really exciting, I think, because we had employees who had been nominated and the employers who had nominated their employees. So everyone was kind of waiting and that excitement of seeing who had won the award and the encouragement award. And actually Mr. Adrian Wagg's son, Dan, was there to help present some of the awards alongside the chair of Lanapoi Homelands.
Are you seeing there's a lot of more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander mob going into those training programs? Did you see it a lot this year?
I have actually. In terms of our apprentices and trainees across the Northern Territory, we've got about 3,400, and a third of those trainees and apprentices are Aboriginal and Torres Strait, so about 32%, which is awesome because, we make up Aboriginal Territorians, we make up a third of the Territory's population, so we're almost exactly on par in terms of our statistics for trainers and apprentices. So that's been pretty exciting seeing that. We're also seeing a growth of women in traineeships and apprentices across the Territory. Yeah. So, as a woman, I'm very excited to see that. But particularly our Aboriginal trainees and apprentices, and seeing the opportunities in our regional areas as well as our urban areas. And we're steadying off, and we're in that really good stat of being well represented in the numbers for those opportunities in the Territory.
You did the opening address for the Aboriginal Economic Development Forum. We here at Aboriginal TV Channel 4, as well as Larrakia Radio, as well as Australian Indigenous Radio, were there supporting the event.
Oh, it was fantastic. It's my third one that I've been able to attend. It was held here in Darwin. The first one I attended was 2015, and that was in Alice Springs. This year it was a real, pleasure and honour to be able to give the keynote address and to speak on behalf of the Northern Territory Labor Government about some of the areas we're really focused on in terms of support for Aboriginal business right across the Northern Territory.
In terms of Aboriginal business development and our business growth plan, our government is focused on helping our Aboriginal businesses and enterprises to start, to run and to grow and be sustainable in the long term.
And we're getting visitors from all over the country now come to that forum to present, to share, to look at business opportunities in the Territory, to talk about increasing the workforce of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in our employment opportunities. That forum was really great buzz. Some of our Aboriginal businesses were showcasing and they had stalls out, which was fantastic. So again, it's that sharing and learning and trading, which we've done for thousands of generations.
What was one of the businesses you saw and was excited for the potential of its growth? Was there any there that you saw?
There's always a lot. I mean, I see a lot when I travel the Territory. So from our little art centres that are in communities and the space that they're working in, growing and developing, not just their products but their workforce and their employees, to some consultants who are doing things individually as well as in partnership with some of our bigger companies, and then some of the big players like PricewaterhouseCoopers, their Indigenous consulting company. We had Jonathan Thurston's Academy come across from Queensland, which I think a lot of people were really excited to see JT. And he's just a lovely man, and he's really focused on what can he do to support education and training. They've got some opportunities that they've worked through in Queensland. They're looking at the Northern Territory and the opportunities. So, it's a really good learning and sharing forum, but also people can take away some practicality from that forum. So it'll be really great to see, particularly next year, our Territory businesses grow, any of the Australian businesses that want to do business in the Territory, how they partner with our Aboriginal organisations and businesses, and then also what we could see in 2 years' time at the next forum.
Yeah, no, it was a very good 2 days of collaborating and sharing and networking.
Absolutely.
So it definitely needed to help grow Northern Australia. Would you like to talk about the Room to Breathe program?
Yes, so Room to Breathe, Rachel, is part of our remote housing package that the Territory Labor Government is committed to, making sure we have good quality and adequate housing for remote Territorians. We know overcrowding and inadequate housing has been an issue for many, many years. Many families, many people are affected negatively when housing is not adequate or safe, or we don't have enough of it. It's about adding living extensions onto our current houses or current dwellings, so extra bedrooms, kitchens, outdoor living spaces, bathrooms and toilets, having extra space to be able to accommodate our families and in a way that is culturally appropriate and that is practical, basically. We have multi-generational families from grannies, great-grannies, all the way up, aunties, uncles, mothers, fathers, everyone who may come in and out of a house. And so how can we better accommodate that? So that's what Room to Breathe's been about. It's also been a way to be able to alleviate some of the pressure of overcrowding on the current houses instead of people having to wait a long time for a new house to be built. We're still building new houses through our Home Build NT program, which is great, and getting local Aboriginal people from their communities working with our Aboriginal businesses and contractors to do that work. So the skill stays in the community, the money stays in the community, doesn't go in and out. We see that obviously over history, that we've seen that. And I recently visited Weemole, which is smack bang in the middle of the Central Arnhem Road, near Bullman community, and all 12 of the houses in Weemole have now had Room to Breathe extension work. We've got 73 remote communities in the Northern Territory. So I said, well, we can't do everyone at once. We've got to just do this program. Then the repairs and maintenance comes on board. So making sure that we've got really good skill sets in our communities, that we don't have to rely on contractors coming in and out all the time and paying big money for that skill to go, that we've got our local countrymen trained in construction and repairs and maintenance as well. So that's a big part of Room to Breathe.
Yeah, so important too. Gives some of them a reason to wake up, knowing that they're helping the community in that kind of way.
Absolutely. And we've seen some, because each house gets to determine, what is right for their family. So it's not like people go and say, oh, we're doing this to your house. The housing crew go in and say, oh, what does your family need? What extra space do you need? What would your priorities be? And then they work with the families and then the architects and designs to make sure that it's reflected what the family's priorities are. Having granny flats added on to some of our houses. So you've got private living space for young couples, single men and women, having their own private space out of the family dwelling as well. So it's been a lot of work, and particularly outdoor kitchens, having covered space when family come in. People might camp in the dry season, but they don't have to come into the house and add that extra pressure on the family that's living in there. They've got extra space to be able to do what everyone wants to do, enjoy life.
Just the relief that they've got room to breathe.
Yes, space.
You were also in Nooka and Barunga for footy games, weren't you?
Yes.
But there was also other special reason that you went there.
So Barunga, just before the Barunga Festival in June, they got their first set ever of football lights or oval lights for the football field, and it was brilliant. Very excited. We'll see more night games and training and some more activities happening in this really hot time. It's 40 degrees out there at the moment. It's really hot and dry. We haven't had much rain down in our region. And a local contractor from Catherine did the works, and they actually won the contract to do the Nooka oval lights. So last weekend was in Nooka, and about $800,000 worth of beautiful new oval lights. It's going to be a game changer. They've already started signing up women to do women's softball out at Nooka. They had 35 women
they got
sign
good players
up,
out that way
which
too.
is great.
And
they're talking about next year doing evening athletics for school kids as well as part of the recreation program out there. So a lot of opportunities, weekend carnivals and competitions, hopefully with other communities coming to visit. But Nooka will be a different place, and it'll be fantastic to see it utilised. They've got a really lovely oval and some very dedicated people working on their sport and recreation program.
For 2020, what are some of the outcomes and projects you are hoping that will come to fruition in the new year?
I think a big thing will be particularly our remote housing program, to see that continuing, where it's making a huge difference out in the bush. Having our housing program and having that pipeline of works for our local employees. So that's, for me, a big priority, as well as some of our infrastructure projects that we look at, better road conditions, having sort of some of the more dangerous parts of the road sealed, or bridges, low level, or culverts put in. So hopefully when it does rain, you've got some of those more safer places to pass, and people aren't taking risk for trying to get through and getting access either into their community or out of their community.
Minister, is there any messages you would love to give to the community during this holiday season?
Definitely. I think it's a great time that people think about their families and spend time with their families and friends. I do say this every year, but watching out for flooded roads is really important, and making sure people aren't taking unnecessary risks and keeping themselves safe and their families safe. Road safety is a huge one, Rachel. We've seen, unfortunately, quite a few deaths just within the last fortnight on our roads, cyclists, motorcyclists and car drivers. My heart always sort of skips a beat when I hear that there's been another accident and when there's been a fatality, whether it's on our bitumen roads or on our dirt roads. We want everyone to stay safe, slow down, wearing seat belts, don't drink and drive or drive under the influence of drugs, and making sure that your car isn't overcrowded and that babies are in baby seats. There's some of the really big ones. I'm very passionate about road safety. Unfortunately, I've seen in the last year, I've seen 9 people die in roads in my electorate. So it is something that I take very seriously and always talk to my family. There's some great remote bus services that are available. So I've spoken to family that if they're coming in to do shopping, it's a quick trip, not being fatigued, making sure you have a rest, taking lots of water. If you get stuck on the road, need to wait for help, then you've got enough water and that people aren't perishing in the hot weather. So just safety and making sure you tell someone when you arrive and when you're leaving so they can kind of monitor maybe where you are. Not all of our places have mobile reception, so it's always good to make sure that someone knows roughly where you are. So that's my biggest thing in terms of Christmas messages, because we want to make sure we all celebrate 2020 together. We've got a big year ahead next year. And I think some very exciting things happening right around the Territory, and particularly in Aboriginal economic development and the business opportunities we have. So it'll be really great to see everyone start fresh again next year.
I agree with you. Well, thank you, Minister, for coming into the studio and talking to me today.
Thank you so much, Rachel.